guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, "But I'm a doctor. I have a right to your driveway." This is not my story, but my dad's. This happened over 15 years ago when my dad had a house in San Francisco on Potrero Hill, which was 3 blocks away from a large hospital called General Hospital. One morning, Dad came home from work. He worked the swing shift as a bus mechanic and found a car in his driveway. Someone had parked their shiny new Mercedes in my dad's driveway, which had a big sign clearly stating no parking, private property. Dad had to park on the street instead of in his garage, which pissed him off. The neighborhood had been plagued with car break-ins and thefts in the last few months, and Dad had the door window in his SUV smashed twice. So Dad left a note asking them to not park in his driveway. Next day, same Mercedes is in the driveway again. So Dad left a second, longer note, telling them to stop ducking parking in my driveway or I'll call the cops and have your butt ticketed, and if you do it again, have your car towed. You'd think the a-hole would get a clue, but if he had, this wouldn't be on here. Next day, the car was there yet again. So, true to his word, Dad called the cops and the car got ticketed. The following morning, Dad came home to find his driveway vacant, no Mercedes in sight. Dad was relieved he'd gotten his driveway and his garage back. This isn't the end of it, naturally. That afternoon, around 4 p.m., my dad's friend, who was sitting out on Dad's front steps, working on a car part, looked up from what he was doing to see the same Mercedes pull up in front of the house. A short, 30-something, Middle Eastern guy in a very nice suit gets out and starts angrily stomping up my dad's stairs. He stopped on the first landing, below my dad's friend, and demands to know if he's the homeowner. Dad's friend says no and turns to yell for my dad, but Dad, after hearing raised voices, comes out to investigate. Immediately, this guy, in a very heavy accent, demands to know why my dad had called the cops on him and got him ticketed. He is waving said ticket around like a pim-pom as he yells. My dad calmly tells him that since it's his driveway, and this guy had been parking there, day after day illegally, despite being told not to, he had every right to call the cops when someone trespasses on his private property. On hearing this guy proceeds to totally lose his crap. He, according to my dad, turns red in the face, and I kid you not, yells, "I'm a doctor. I can park wherever I want to. Everywhere else is taken and I'm not paying to park in the ducking lot. And it's not like you're even using it anyway." Turned out a-hole worked at the hospital, probably in the proctology department, and figured, since he was a doctor, he had a right to park in my dad's driveway. He even claimed the sticker on his car proved he could park anywhere, anytime with impunity. And my dad was using his garage, which this a-hole Mercedes was blocking. He went on to tell my dad that he needed to pay for this entitled Crawford's ticket. Ticket was only $1.85. My dad and his friend both laughed, and Dad told him he could shove that idea and the ticket up his own butt, and as a doctor, Dad told him he was sure knew how to find it. Dad also told him that if he ever saw that Mercedes in his driveway again, he'd have it towed. My dad said the guy's face turned even redder, as in chili pepper red, and he almost expected to see steam coming out of his ears. He then began cussing my dad out and threatened to sue, but my dad cut him off, telling him if he didn't get off his property, he'd happily throw him down the stairs. There were 4 to 5 steps, and this a-hole was on the 27th. Dad's friend, who's a big guy and ex-military, smiled evilly. Mr. I'm a doctor, realizing he wasn't going to get his way, turned and stomped down the steps like a pissed-off 7-year-old, switching between threatening litigation and cussing my dad out, but only after he'd gotten out of range of my dad and his friend. The doctor never sued, and Dad never saw him or his Mercedes again. Next one is titled, "I Want Your Table. Even though it's yours, I deserve it." Okay, so this happened the day before Christmas Eve. My co-workers and I had all decided to go out to eat together, as kind of a company Christmas dinner. We chose a popular chicken restaurant that specializes in chicken and signature sauces. As luck would have it, it was my day off on the day we'd all decided to go out, so I decided to make my way up there early to try and secure a table, since it was the holidays and I knew it would be really busy. I was right. The restaurant was rammed. Every table occupied and a queue of at least 15 people waiting in the entrance to be seated. I noticed there was only one table in the restaurant that would be big enough to seat our party, a large booth that was near the entrance, and so I decided to ask an employee about reserving the table for later. My colleagues wouldn't get off work for at least another hour, and that was more than enough time for the family already seated to finish their meal. I was told that I could reserve the table, but I had to stay in the restaurant. So I accepted, sat down and played on my phone for an hour. I was keeping an eye on the table the whole time, paranoid that someone would just swoop in and take it if I wasn't paying attention. It was really loud, and being a restaurant, also really warm. I've been approached by more than one employee asking if I had been served or if I was waiting for something, since I guess a few noticed I had been here a while every other person was being seated around me. Finally, the family left and the table was cleared, and the hostess came over to offer the table. I was so relieved I practically skipped to sit down, feeling reassured that the table was now mine. Or so I thought. About 10 minutes go by, and that's when I heard it. "Excuse me." It was a woman's voice, not one I recognized. I'd froze at first, but didn't look up, positive she had to be talking to an employee's since I was seated right next to the door and the entrance where the hostess worked. My hope was quickly dashed when another, less patient, "Excuse me," sounded closer to my ear. I quickly looked up, startled to find a woman perfectly fitting her snooty voice looking down at me. She was older, maybe around 40 or 50, a little overweight, short blonde hair, bright red lipstick. Essentially, an alarm bell to anyone who had ever worked any form of retail. "Yes," I replied, a little cautiously, since I didn't know what she wanted. She was smiling, and she didn't look dangerous, so I tried to dismiss my alarms. Funny how I always do that right before I'm about to get trouble. "Would you mind moving to a smaller table? This is the biggest table they have and I've got a big family. You're sitting here all on your own. Would you mind?" Now, if I had been sitting on my own, I probably would have given the table up, but I wasn't, and there were other medium to large families who had been waiting to be seated before these people even came in. I knew they couldn't have been here long because I was keeping an eye on the door waiting for my co-workers to arrive. So one of those parties would be more entitled to the table than this lady's family who had to have just walked in. I didn't say any of this though, since she was being polite, and it did look rather strange me sitting in a 12-seater all alone. So I merely smiled apologetically at her and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm actually waiting for my friends to turn up. We got a lot of people, so I really need this table." I thought I'd been nice enough, but the woman didn't seem to like my reply. Her face immediately soured. "Well, that's not fair. I tried to make a reservation for this table over the phone and I was told I couldn't. You shouldn't be allowed to reserve a table if I wasn't." I was shocked at the turn of her attitude, but as I work in retail, you could say I've developed rather a thick skin for people like this. I just continued to look up calmly as I said, "Ma'am, I've been waiting for this table for an hour. I was told I could only reserve the table if I stayed in the restaurant, so I've been here for an hour waiting. I can't move to a smaller table. I'm sorry." I wasn't actually sorry. Maybe she caught on to that because she huffed and stormed off. I thought that was the end of it. Will I ever learn? A few minutes later, I hear her voice again. The restaurant was still loud and busy, so I knew she had to be close for me to hear her at all. I look up and sure enough, she's standing super close to my table, talking heatedly to a man in the restaurant uniform, who was casting sideways glances at me the whole time. Crap, I thought, fully prepared to fight for this table. I had waited longer than anyone else in line, and I wasn't giving it up without a fight. Not even to an entitled brat that thought she and her huge party could show up to a restaurant in the middle of a shopping high street in the evening during the holiday season and just magically expect to be seated before everyone else. I tried to convince myself that maybe she wasn't talking about me and she was just trying to get a table put together for her family, but that hope was quickly dashed when the employee came over to me, annoying lady in tow, with her hands on her hips and everything like I was a naughty child about to be reprimanded. The guy smiles sympathetically. "Miss, I understand you've been waiting here a while. He must have seen me sitting in the waiting area all that time, but would you mind waiting just a little longer to be seated at a smaller table? I could even speak to the manager about getting your meal compensated for you." He looked tired and like he really wanted me to accept just to get this obnoxious lady out of his hair. And if I had been on my own, I probably would have taken him up on the offer, but I wasn't alone. My coworkers would likely show up in the next 10 minutes or so, and if I didn't keep this table, we'd all have to hunt for somewhere else to eat. They had been working all day, and I'd come down here early just so they wouldn't have to stand by the entrance for an hour, so they could eat their food. So, heart-heavy for this poor bloke, who I would be causing more trouble for, I simply explained, "Sorry, but I'm actually waiting for a group of friends. They're all getting off work soon, and I came here early to get a table. I need this table." He looked like he understood and was resigned to his fate to deal with the pushy lady behind me. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but she did reserve this table. I'd be more than happy to have some smaller tables put together for you and your family once they're available. If you wouldn't mind waiting, we'll have you seated as soon as we can," the man said, almost unbelievably polite. Seriously, I wished I could be that patient when dealing with hoity-toity customers. Yet, despite the poor guy's pleasant manner and his reasonable offer, pushy lady still wasn't satisfied. When I called to reserve a table, I was told that I couldn't. It's not fair that she looks down her nose at me, can reserve a table when I couldn't. My family has kids. We need a big table. "Oh lady, you did not just use the 'I have kids so I'm entitled to special treatment' tactic." The man merely replied, "I'm sorry again, ma'am, but she had the table first, and she's been waiting for it." As I said I'd be more than, pushy lady cuts him off. "I don't want to wait for small tables. I want this table. She shouldn't be allowed to hold it for her friends. She's here alone, and we're a big party. Go eat your manager if you won't do anything." The poor guy meekly agrees and goes to get his manager. Pushy lady stomps back to her large family, and I mentally start biting my nails. They won't honestly make me move, will they? I wanted to tell myself that they wouldn't, but I had a feeling if the woman put up enough of a fuss, they'd make me move just to shut her up. Then, by the grace of the sun, moon, and stars, I see my first collie walk in, followed by another, then another, and finally, the full party of I think 10, finally comes through and sits down. I am so relieved. There's no way anyone can make me move now. They're all laughing and joking. Most thank me for getting the table, and I get filled in about what happened at work that day. I don't tell them about pushy lady and just relax into the comfort of not being on my own, happily joining the discussion about what everyone would order. A few minutes later, out of the corner of my eye I see pushy lady talking rather angrily to another woman, who I presumed was the manager, the worker guy by her side, taking small sideways glances at us, but most definitely not looking like she was going to march up and force us out of the precious table pushy lady wanted so badly. "Sucks to be you, pushy lady. Maybe next time you should show up early. Now, I guess you'll have to wait like everyone else." Next one is entitled Uncle Demands Our House for His Son. This happened a long time ago, so it may be a bit fuzzy. When I was 6 years old, my father passed away. My mother had died giving birth to me, so all that was left was just me, 6-year-old little girl, and my 2 older brothers, 20 and 19 at the time. He had no will, so the house and his small shop went to me and my brothers. Our only other relatives were a distant uncle and cousin who we barely knew. After my dad passed, my oldest brother adopted me so I wouldn't be taken from them and ran the shop as best he could. So about 3 months after my dad's funeral, we get a call from my uncle saying he and his son were in town. At first we figured he just wanted to check up on us, many people did. When he showed up, everything was normal until he said this to my oldest brother. Entitled Uncle: "So when do you guys plan on moving?" Oldest brother: "Oh, we aren't moving anywhere, why do you ask?" Entitled Uncle: "Well, since your dad left it to me, I want to move my son in." We were just confused, since the house was ours by law. Younger older brother: "No, it was left to me, my older brother and sister." Entitled Uncle: "Well, I'm his brother, so I get his house, and besides, you guys can't keep this place up." I could tell even back then my oldest brother was getting a bit upset. Oldest brother: "No, this house is ours and we are not moving." Entitled Uncle: "Oh, come on, my son needs a place to live, and besides, you got money to find a new place." Older and younger brother are now upset. Oldest brother: "Then tell him to find his own place. We are not moving from our home." Entitled Uncle, now getting a bit in his face: "Fine, you brats, I'll call the Dame police to evict you." At this he stormed out. A few hours later the police arrived. Entitled Uncle had apparently told them that they were sexual abusing me and had narcotics. After explaining everything to them, they seemed to understand the situation, but still they had to call Child Protection Services to make sure. After about 3 days of investigation work by CPS, they found nothing. Not that there was anything to find. After this, my oldest brother filed a restraining order against him. For about 3 months after all of this, my cousin constantly apologized for his father's behavior. I have not seen him since that day. Not that I want to. I hope that I remember this correctly and that you guys enjoy. Little update. Someone asked how the house is now in the shop. Both are fine. My oldest brother lives in our house with his wife and kids. The shop burned down, but insurance helped rebuild it even better than before. It's now a coffee shop that my older brother runs successfully, and I moved out to attend university in Japan. So things are all good back home. Last one is titled. Entitled Idiot Learns the Meaning of Walk Softly and Carry a Big Stick. Some background information I think might be needed for this. I am immunocompromised due to childhood abuse/neglect. I currently wear my mask whenever I'm not at home, whether I'm inside or out. My back was broken several years ago during an assault. The doctors told me I would never walk again, especially seeing I was a bit overweight and probably wouldn't stick with the rehab. It was almost 2 years until I could walk unassisted, but the bone chip in my back can still sometimes shift and bump a nerve, causing my muscles to lock up or go weak to the point I collapse. Because of this, I carry a carved wooden walking stick, nearly as tall as me. Cast, me female 45, Dan, myso male 49, entitled Idiot male 30-ish and his 2 kids about 5 and 7. I was waiting outside the clinic after a doctor's appointment, looking for some new ebooks on my phone, while Dan went to get the car from the other side of the building. Enter entitled Idiot. You need to take your mask off. You are scaring my children. Excuse me, I'm talking to you. I glance up at him and then his 2 kids staring at their dad with wide eyes. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. I need to wear this mask because of a health condition. You're lying. You're just trying to cause trouble. He looks me up and down, probably taking in my rainbow hair, jewelry, dark purple hoodie, red and black gypsy skirt, purple and black boots, and anything else he deems inappropriate. I mean, just look at you, seeking attention you don't deserve. You're entitled to your opinion, but I'm still not taking my mask off. And I'm not scaring those kids, you are. There's no reason to be afraid of someone else wearing a mask. If they are, it's because your behavior made them think they should be. You can't speak to me that way. Do you not realize who I am? Nope. Do you not realize I'm standing 2 feet from the door of a medical facility, one you're out to enter? Do you not realize it's a place you're required to wear masks? Entitled Idiot keeps going on, getting louder and louder, but I'm finished with him. So I just tune him out and continue looking for books. This probably pissed him off more, but engaging in debates with idiots is both pointless and exhausting. Dan pulls up and gets out just in time to see entitled Idiot get in my face and scream, "Your fat butt is going to die a miserable death anyways, so why wear a mask?" Now Dan knows I can take care of myself, so he's just casually leaning against the car, but still close enough to jump in if necessary. Then entitled Idiot makes the move I figure someone like him might end up doing. He grabs for my mask. I turn as if he was throwing a punch, spin my stick behind him, nailing him in the hamstrings, back of the thigh, and take 3 steps to the side. Entitled Idiot drops and starts crying as if he's dying. Dan just throws his head back and laughs so hard he's practically convulsing. He does manage to rein it enough to walk inside and let a staff member know what happened. While I'm waiting, I sit on a bench near the kids and quickly explain that violence should only be used if someone's trying to physically hurt you or someone you don't know tries to touch you. And if that ever happens, no matter who did it, you need to tell an adult who wasn't there and doesn't already know what happened. Then I point to entitled Idiot and tell him he tried to touch me and I don't know him. I had to use violence to stop him, and even though a lot of people saw it, I will still tell someone else. Dan, a nurse, and another staff member, pushing a wheelchair, come out and head our way. After making sure they knew who we were, Dan, who had started shaking with laughter as soon as he saw entitled Idiot again, just takes my hand and we start walking toward our car. As I pass entitled Idiot, I bend over slightly and whisper pussy. Yeah, not one of my most mature moments, but not one of the worst either. Before anyone asks, which a couple of the people I've told have, that stick is always in reach. I'm constantly toying with it and practicing the self-defense moves I've learned in the years since the assault. I know the right amount of force that causes severe damage. I did not use it. The guy was an idiot a-hole, but his actions did more and more. Plus, his already upset kids were right there. Thanks for listening.